So if you launch your Eclipse, and then we'll see we can create a new project, which I think you have done already. So it's a banking system. So why don't I just create a new project here? I can say CSE114 banking system, let's say. You can just keep your original file, or you want to create a new one, doesn't matter. Banking system here. So let's go into banking system here. So let's say the first class we need, let's go one by one. So we say a banking system has a number of bank clients. So again, we need a banking system class, right? So let's just create class first. So new Java class, and let's say banking system here, without any main method, since we're doing classes first, all the templates. Okay, let's create all the classes before we do attributes. Okay, we'd say a banking system has a number of bank clients, and each client has a unique client ID. So we need a class for clients as well. Okay, so let's do another class called clients. You can call that bank clients, or you can call it clients, doesn't matter. Okay, client here.
Account.
Yeah, exactly. Let me just go one by one. Yes. Okay, client, also each account here over here. So you also need a class called account. Okay, and also let me put it here, class account or bank account, doesn't matter. Account here, and let me just go back. And also after that, you can see each account has a number of transactions. So each transaction, so a transaction can also be a class. Okay, so let me just do another one. So you have over here transaction. Okay, another class called transaction here, and save it. So we got 4 classes so far. We got banking system, clients, accounts, and transaction. Also, we need a tester. So let's call it banking system tester, maybe just the class for overall. So another class, you can call that banking system tester. Okay, that's what you have. So now let's see how we can go with the attributes. So let's start from the beginning again. A banking system has a number of bank clients, which means you might have more than one, or sometimes even more, like 2 or 3 or 4, doesn't matter. You have multiple clients in your banking system. So now, what should be the name of the attributes? Since you actually got bank clients, so the attribute name can be bank clients or simply just clients. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is going to banking system there. Go to banking system class over there, and then I need one attribute here. So I can call that maybe just clients. Okay, plural rather than singular. So now what should be the type of the clients? Because I know I have a number of banking clients, so that should be an array. And now, what should be the type of the clients?
Clients.
Clients?
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Right, very good. Yeah. Rather than string. So why not string?
Because like you're trying to you're trying to get the class, like you're trying to get the information from the class.
Yeah, because client can contain multiple information,
Yeah.
right? So if you only get string, then it's only a single information you're getting. But if you get an object, you actually get much more. Very good. So now, let me put client here. Okay, that's about it for a banking system. As easy as that. Okay. So as you see more examples, you will see the patterns are really similar. Okay. So that's why OO might seem a little bit complicated and confusing at first. But as you see more examples, you will see that it's actually quite intuitive. Okay, so just don't give up. Okay, just try to learn the examples. Okay, banking system here. Let's go on. So each client over here. So this sentence here is about how each client should be characterized. Each client has a unique ID. Okay, what about just go to clients there. Go to clients. First of all, we can have ID. So let's just say client ID is simply a string, or it can be integer. So let me just make a string, just be more flexible. A client has an ID, and also a first name and last name. Okay, so we have string, first name. So these should be very easy for you. String, last name. And also we have contact phone number. What about just phone number? String, phone number. As you can see, the naming convention in Java, if you have one single word, that should be all in lower cases. If you got like a compound words, the first word should be all lower cases.
ID or IND or
I mean, no, actually,
no,
ID, identify, right? And if you got two compound words, in this case, the first compound word should be lower cases, and the second one should be capitalized, and third one should be capitalized as well, etc. Okay, first name, last name, phone number, and also mailing address. Okay, string mailing, or you can just call it address, doesn't matter. Mailing address. Okay, I'm just following the province statement there. And also a list of bank clients. Again, we're talking about like a multiple bank clients rather than array. Array of what? Very good. Since we got account already, right? So always sort out the classes first before you go to the attributes. Very good. So let's say account, an array of accounts. Okay. And that seems to be it for account class. Oh, sorry, for client class. So now, this paragraph here is about the each account. So let's go to account class. Let's go there. Okay. So each account has what? Let's see. Each account has a unique account ID. So again, we have ID here. So let's say again, it's string. So don't get confused with the ID. So two classes might have the same attribute name. That's fine. Okay. There will be just different objects created later. So we have account here. Account has a unique ID and also has a owner, okay, associated owner. So an owner is yet another client, okay? What does that mean? So here you can have owner who is another client, right? Just like that, okay? So actually the province statement gives you many hints where you just want to read into the lines. And also the history of transactions. Again, we need an array, right? Because here, when you say history of transactions, that means you might have more than one transactions that the account has. You might have the deposit, you might have the withdrawal, you might have a series of them. So here, transaction, an array of transaction, and then transactions, right? That's what you have. Okay, so that's for the account class. And let's question so far. Yes.
Why is the string for ID not
Oh, so this one, this is flexible. So depending on what you mean by ID. So let's say if the ID like credit card number, then of course it can be integer. But in case it's like a social security number, sometimes they have a character. In case in the midterm, I will be very specific. I would say example IDs can be A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what should be the type? So that should be a string rather than integer. Yeah. Very good. And now the client owner should be a client. Although transaction should be an array of transaction. Okay. So that's good. So that's transaction. What about transaction itself? Each transaction. So let's go to transaction class. So each transaction has an ID again. Okay, you can see it's very common in object-oriented world to have for the class to have an ID. Very common. So it has an ID. So let's say again, let's say string rather than integer. But feel free to put it as an integer if you like. And a type. So here the type can either be a deposit or withdrawal. So this is kind of similar to. It's kind of similar to a course can be either mandatory or optional, kind of like that. So here you got two choices. Either you can say you have a Boolean attributes is deposit or is withdrawal, something like that. Or you can have simply a string attributes called type. And this type value can either be deposit or withdrawal. Okay, either way. Let me just do another way. You can try different ways, but what about this? Let's say the type of transaction. What about just character? Okay, type of transaction, and then I can put some comments here. D for deposit, and also W for withdrawal. Okay, so in some way, this is actually the most space-saving way because character, just a single character, right? If you say string, it's going to take many more characters to store. Okay, that's just one possibility. If I ask you to write this, I'll be very specific. Okay, the type of the transaction, and what else? And also the amount of money involved. So the amount of money, so it should be sensible to use double, right? So double the amount that's involved in the transaction, okay? So the idea is every time if a particular client is trying to do some deposit or withdrawal, you should create a transaction object associated with the deposit or withdrawal as by setting the transaction object correctly. That's the idea. But I will show you how to do that. Okay. Okay. Let's now. So once we are done with the classes and attributes, let's think about constructor. Okay. Let's do one by one. What about we do from transaction first? Okay. Okay, transaction here. So first of all, the constructor here should be the same name as the class, right? So we'll think about the input parameters in a moment. So now, what should we put into the transaction? Think about when do you actually create instances of the transaction. Every time when you're trying to do a deposit or withdraw at the client level, you're trying to create a transaction for each account. So in this case, you want to give a identifier to the transaction. Also, you will know whether that's deposit or withdraw. And also, you will know the amount. So you can give everything here in the constructor, really. Okay, let's try that. And again, in the midterm test, I will also be very specific. I'll tell you, create a constructor with the following input parameters. Okay, you wouldn't have to decide that yourself. Decision will be made for you already. Okay, so you can say string new ID. Okay, just a name, and then character, their new type, and also double. Okay, just have a matching type there. New amount. Okay, so now I'm sure how to know you know how to complete it. So you would say ID is assigned to be new ID, and type is assigned to be new type, and also you have amount is assigned to new amount. Right? Let's do some test. Okay, let's see how we can do it. If you go to the banking system tester there, so let's see now over here. So now let's say I would like to create two transactions, one for deposit, the other one for withdrawal. How am I supposed to do that? Okay, and also for each one of them, I need to give them some ID. Okay, for ID, I can just make it up myself. So let's say transaction, right? That's how you create a new object. Let's say TR1. Transaction 1 is, what about just T1? Transaction 1 is equal to new transaction. And what input value should I give? I should give ID, type, and amount. So ID here, I can just give, let's say, transaction 1. Okay, I'll just say transaction 1.
Main method.
Yes, exactly. Good man. I forgot about that. Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes. So let's say the ID is simply T1, and then it's let's say it's for deposit, okay? And then we actually let's say $100, 150, okay? So this is a possible object for transaction. So you got transaction ID because that's a string, so it can be anything. So let's say T1, okay? And also let's say T1 is actually a deposit, and also you got $150. $100.50. Let's just do another one. How do you create a transaction with ID T2? And let's say that's a withdrawal for $50.57. How do you do that? Okay, you should really do that. I'll do that as well. So for example, I can say that's T2 new transaction and T2, let's say. So now this time is withdrawal. And 57, I forgot what I said. Okay, whatever. Okay. Okay, so now we've got two objects here. So that's about transaction. It's actually quite easy, the transaction. So you got T1, you got T2, right? And each one of them, for each one of them, have to specify the transaction ID, the type, whether that's deposit or withdrawal, or and also the amount that's involved. Of course, what you could have done was, rather than having a char over here, it can be a boolean. A boolean can be true or false. You can say when it is true, then that means it's a deposit transaction, and when it is false, that means it's a withdrawal transaction. Okay, it's up to you really. Okay, that's about transaction here. Let's go to account. Let's go bottom up. Okay, so we go to transaction and then let's go to account. Account belongs to a particular client there. Okay, so now let's think about the constructor here. Okay, account. So now we have to think about the input parameters here. So now we should think about what input value should we give for the to the account constructor here. Typically, for the array type attributes, you do not initialize them with any particular value. You just initialize them to be empty. That's typically the case. If you think about in real life, if you have some new accounts, of course you haven't done anything with the new account yet. It's brand new. That's why the transactions will simply be empty. That's typically the case. Of course, there might be exceptions, but in the exception, you will have to deal with them. Okay. In this case, let's say we try to pass only the ID and the owner. Okay. Let's do the following. We can say account, let's say string new ID, and also string new owner, and nothing else. So we do not pass any array to initialize that. We can just initialize that to be empty internally. How do we do that? So first of all, we have to assign the ID to the new ID, and also owner to be the new owner. Sorry, that shouldn't be string, that should be client. Okay, so far so good. So we are only initializing the new ID, the ID and the owner. So now, for the transactions, I would like to initialize just an empty collection of transactions. So how do I do that? Let's make some assumption here. There should be no more than 30 transactions for each account, let's say. How do we initialize an array of transaction of size 30? Okay, that's sort of syntax you should really know in order to write a midterm, right? So if you want to do that, you have to say transactions is assigned to be, since we're trying to create a new array, so you have to use a new keyword here, and then so you have to say what's the type of the array, transaction, square brackets here, and you have to say what the size is. Let's say 30. Right? Yeah, it's a very important syntax for you to know. Maybe initially you have to memorize the syntax, but up to now, you can see every time when you're trying to create a new object, you always have to use a new keyword. And whenever you use a new keyword, you have to mention what type of array element you're trying to create. In this case, it's transaction. Okay, that's why you put transaction there. And also for array, you always have the square brackets there and put the size in there. Okay, so it shouldn't be too bad. Okay, that's about the constructor for account. Let me also do the constructor for clients, and then we'll do some tests. Let's go to clients here. It's going to be similar. So we're going to initialize the clients with everything except for the accounts, because when there's a new client accepted to the bank for the first time, they haven't got any transactions or any open account yet. So you can simply initialize the accounts to be empty. Okay, similar. So we can say clients here. So we're going to give all the input values for initializing all the attributes here. So I can say string new ID, string let's say f name, string l name for last name, and also string phone number, and one more, string mailing address. Okay, I'm going to assign them, each one of them, to the attributes as before. So I'd say ID is equal to new ID, right? Also first name is equal to f name. Also last name is equal to l name, and phone number and mailing address. So phone number is equal to phone number here, and also mailing address is assigned to be M address. Okay, everything so far is straightforward. So now, how do we complete a line to say, initially, when we first create a client instance, we're going to initialize their accounts array to be empty. Let's say again, there should be no more than 30 accounts for a single client. Okay, so for this line, I hope you can complete it yourself, right? So the way to do that would be to say accounts equals, again, we're trying to create a new array. New, and what's the type of the array? Account. And what's the size? And put, let's say 30, let's say. Okay. Okay, you can see a very similar pattern here. I would say this might be considered a more difficult constructor to write, but it's not too bad. You know, just got more input parameters and just an array to initialize. So far so good? Yeah? Okay, so let's do some tests. Okay. How do we test it? And have some idea. So if you go to the banking system here, and let's say, first of all, we would like to create a new client. Okay, let's say this. Let's say the following. So what about client here? Let's say client, let's say Jim, okay, is equal to new clients. Okay, so let's say C1, okay, just make it easy, client 1. Okay, first name Jim, let's say Davis, and phone number, I don't know, let's say, just put any number you like. I'll just say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And address, I don't know, let's say Great Britain somewhere, okay? Doesn't matter the address, okay? After that, let's see what else. And make sure you put a semicolon at the end as well. Okay, let's just put another client here. Okay, Jim, what about, let's say Jim, Bob. Okay, we're looking for 3 characters actually. Bob, let's say Bob. Let's say they happen to have the same last name. Okay, and then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then let's say Canada, for example. You know, just doesn't matter. So now we have 2 clients. Okay, so now how do we? So that's the clients, and now how do we actually add the create the accounts? Somehow we have to do the following. So for your account, we can say ACC1 is equal to new account, and what should we give? Let's go back to account and see what should we give. We should give both the string ID and also the owner. Okay, so now we are facing a choice here. So now you can see at the time we want to create an account, we actually have to pass an owner, which is the clients, right? According to what we defined before. So now it's really up to you if you would like to assign the owner to the account right away, or you want to assign the owner later. Okay, it seems to me that maybe we should assign the owner later. Okay, so but we should really compare the differences. So I would suggest the following. If you go back to your account class, let's make the constructor a little bit easier. If you just get rid of one of the input constructor here, get rid of that, okay? So that means we're only going to initialize the ID for the account and also initialize the transactions to be empty. But how do we set up the owner? The way to set up the owner would be, we can say set owner. We can have some mutator method, right? Whatever that's uninitialized from the constructor, we can use the mutator method to set it properly. So here you would say in the account, you would say void set owner. Okay, and owner should be the new owner should be a client. Okay. So here you would say owner is equal to new owner. Okay, so once you see, when you see the video, you will see the changes. So there are two versions of constructor you can make. The first version that we did before, we try to initialize both the ID and also the owner at the same time. But in the second version, which to me seems to be more realistic, you try to initialize only the new ID in the constructor level. But later on, you will use the mutator to set the owner properly, which means you can also set the owner multiple times. Okay, let's go back to the clients here. Of course, if you go back to your banking system test, so we haven't done this part yet. So let me just put that into comments, okay? So now I would like to go to, okay, account 1, okay. So now we're in the tester here, account 1. So now I should give both the ID. So let's say ACC1, that's the ID. And also, I think that's it. Okay? So just give it an ID to the account with empty transactions. Let's just do another one. ACC2. ACC2. Okay, so far you can see just from the how the constructors are defined, we can see how the instances should be created in the tester. Let's add our first useful method here. Let's say in the client level, how do we add a new account? How do we open up a new account for the clients? How do we do that? So if you go to the client class over there, okay, let's say you can say mutator method that opens a new account for clients. Okay. So you would like to open up a new account for the clients. How do we do it? Okay. Because it's a mutator, so that shouldn't return anything, should be void, as we said. And now you can say add account. Okay, so here to make it easy, we can just add account objects. Remember, in the tester there, we already got the account objects, which we can just add into the clients later. ACCOUNT account ACC. Okay, so but now, how do we complete this code over here? How do we add a new account? I believe this is one of your quiz questions today, right? How do you add a new circle? No, how do you add a new rectangle into rectangle collector? And also, in last week's lab exercise, we learned how to add a new course to the registered courses for the students, right? So these are all similar. Any suggestion how I am supposed to complete it? Since we got an array, so somehow we need to assign this to the array, right? How can we be sure where to assign this into the right spot in the array?
Using integer.
Somehow you need to use a counter to keep track, right? Yeah.
Filling the attributes like int I.
Yeah, something like that. Okay, so please make sure you review that part. It's really important. Okay, so we have done this actually already 2 times. So what you should do is you can do integer. So just keep some counter at the class level. Okay, you would say integer. You could say number of accounts. Okay, that's some attribute there. And now in the constructor there, you can simply assign that to be 0. But this line here is not so necessary because remember, for primitive type, the default value when uninitialized will simply be 0. Okay, so this line here, just to make it clearer to you. Okay, so the number of clients initially will be 0. That means when you are trying to add the very first account, you will actually insert that into the 0 index slot. And every time after you add a new account, you have to increment this counter value. Okay, that's how you keep track. Okay. Over here, first of all, we're going to say accounts, number of accounts is assigned to be ACC. You can see we're trying to say go into this position of the array and then assign this ACC object into there, right? And then we're going to say number of accounts plus plus. which means we're going to increment the number of accounts in this client. Okay, and that's very similar to what we did before for register courses. Okay, every time when you're trying to register a new course, you're going to insert the elements to the end of the array, and then try to increment the counter each time. Okay. That's what you have, and then that's the add account. And also, we're going to do something else. Okay. Now let's go back to tester here. Let's try to test it. Okay. So let's say I would like to add gym.add account. Okay. Let's say I would like to open up a new account for gym. Let's say that'll be ACC1. Okay. Not only that, after that, I would like to set the owner of account 1, set owner to be gym. It will be an exercise for you to see how the object diagram looks like. I've drawn many diagrams in the class and also on the slide, so you're supposed to figure out how the diagram looks like by these lines. Okay, very important exercise for you. Okay, so line 13, we try to add a new account, ACC1, into the accounts array for gym. Line number 14, we are trying to set the owner of account number 1 to be gym. So we are trying to perform 2 actions. Okay. Can you do 2 lines for me? Let's say we would like to open up a new account for Bob. Let's say ACC2. The 2 lines for you. First of all, you have to add a new add ACC2 to Bob's account, and then set the owner of ACC2 to be Bob. So 2 things for you to do. Okay. Try to do that, and then I'll do it on the projector as well. Yeah. Oh, sure. Okay, so we'll give you about 1 minute to do this. You can have a look at your maybe the constructor here. It has ID, phone number, address. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 rows. Here, go 1, 2, 3. It could be that. Oh, I see. You see, phone number is integer, so you give you the string. That's one. I think that could be a very good quiz question. Okay, let's do these 2 lines. So I would like to add. So let's say for Bob, add account ACC2, and also set the owner of ACC2 to be Bob. Set owner and then let's say Bob. Okay, should be so far should still be straightforward. Okay, so now we have the ability to actually add an account to the clients. Okay, and what else? So let's see. Let's now go to the more difficult operations here. Okay, let's do what about deposit and withdrawal. Okay, so this is actually the more difficult part. Okay, let's try to do that. Maybe you will try to do deposit today. I'll let you finish withdraw yourself, and then on Wednesday, I'll try to do the transfer with you together. Okay, that would be the plan. Okay, let's do deposit first. So when we want to do deposit, we would like to know which account we are talking about, right? So let me just refer back to you, back to the statement here. So here, so now read this line here again that I'm highlighting. So that's something that you should really find a hint from the problem statement here. It says that given a valid account ID, a client may deposit money into that account, which adds a new deposit transaction to that account's list of transactions.
There's a mutator.
Yeah, mutator here. So somehow you want to say deposit, and what the deposit should do is to create a new transaction of type deposit and add it into the list of transactions. Okay, that's sort of the idea. But I'm going to show you how to do that. It seems like before I do this, I need an add transaction as well. Very similar to add account. can we just go to account again? Can we just add a new method here? So something at the account level, we should say add transaction. Okay, it's very similar to add account. Very similar transaction T. And now, how do you complete that? Of course, you have to introduce a counter at the account class level to keep track of how many transactions you have got. And then you have to somehow to insert this new transaction to the end of the array. Again, we are following the same pattern here, right? Should I give you 1 minute to complete this? So now we are in the account class. What we did before was we were at the client class level, and we are trying to add a new account. Now we are trying to do something similar. We are now in the account class, and we are trying to add a new transaction. And the transaction should be inserted into the transactions array. And how do we do that? To do that, somehow you have to introduce a new integer attribute to keep track of how many transactions you got. Right? I'll give you 2 minutes, so please try to do this yourself, and then we'll discuss that after 2 minutes. As you can see, this pattern here repeats over and over again. Yes. Oh, did you do that? Or you didn't? How to fix it? Yes. Let's start with top one. It's undefined. Okay. Typically, this error means somehow you give the argument values that do not match the types for the parameter. So, for example, let's say if one string, and one double. Sorry. So one string, yes, very good. One string, one character, and one double. So if you go to the transaction class over here, one string, one character, and one double. One guess that you can simplify. Do that. You can see those two lines are already gone. You can see. But now let's finish this. The client here got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 are all strings. So let's go to the client class. Very good. So now you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You got 6. You're missing one, right? So somehow you got ID. Very good. That's C1. You got first name. You got last name. You got phone number there. You got phone number repeated twice. That's one. You got phone number, you got key number there. You see what the issue is, right? Yeah. Somehow the list of parameters does not match. If you simplify, it's really happy with it. You can see everything's gone there. Now in here, phone number, since phone number, very good. All right, good. Now we solve it. Good. Okay. So now let's solve one by one. So can we just have you save one file and maybe give it some words and all the others? Yes. It might be a faster way. Go to the file and then save all. Okay, now you got only these two errors, right? Always move to save. You only compile the file to save. So now if you use the account, can we just go to your account class? You see your account class here, you're taking 2 parameters. You see, but now because we got rid of one this attribute, basic parameter, so just delete that. The new account. Yes. So maybe delete that. Yes, just all the keep it in mind. And now we can delete that line and name as well. That's a second version here. Yeah, come on. All right. Good. Okay. So now, how do we do add transactions? How do we do that? Very similar. You need a counter, and why don't we just do the counter first? You would say in the account class integer number of transactions, right? And then you would say initially, that should be initialized to be 0. So number of transactions equals 0. It's a bit redundant, but let's do it just for clarity. And then for add transactions, we would say transactions, number of transactions similar is equal to, and equal to t. And then number of transactions should be incremented. Oops, sorry. Number of transactions should be incremented. If you actually have any doubts about how this counter works, go to the lab recording last Thursday. I think maybe not last Thursday, Thursday before. Okay, just refer to that. October 15th. Okay, that's the lab session you should really refer to. Very important to know how the counter works. Yeah. Okay, so that's about adding transaction here. So now we got add transaction at the account level. Also, we got add account in the client level. Okay, so now we would like to define a new mutator method here in clients. Okay, so now we are in the client class. Go to client class, and now we would like to implement a new mutator method. Let's say mutator method that deposits a certain amount from a given account. Okay, something like that. Let's figure out the, so this one is going to be a mutator again. So what should be the return type?
No.
Not null?
No, nothing.
Nothing.
Void.
Void, right? You meant to say void. Yeah, that's nothing. I agree, but it's got to be void in Java term. Okay, you got to say void, and then you would say deposit, let's say. Okay, so now if you wonder about what should be the input argument or input parameter you should give, refer back to the problem statement. Let's see if we can find any hints. Over there, we'd say, given a valid account ID, a client may deposit money into that account. So it seems like there are two inputs you need. So one would be some account ID for you to find out where the account is. And the second one would be the money you would like to deposit, right? Two input parameters here. Okay, so deposit here we would say, let's say because account ID is simply string account ID, okay, for particular clients, and then we would do the also the amount, double the amount to deposit. Okay. So now let me briefly describe what you should do first, and then I'll let you spend maybe 5 minutes doing this, and then we go over a solution together. What you should do here is to somehow, and this is kind of similar to what you implemented before for the get GPA. Similar, although get GPA is an excessive method, but the loop is going to be similar. What you should do is to somehow iterate through the accounts array, because each slot there stores an account object, and the account object got the account ID. Retrieve the account ID, compare to see if they match. If they do match, that means that's the account you would like to insert the deposit transaction. Okay, let me write it down in English for you. Okay, iterate through the accounts array for each account object that you encounter. See if the accounts ID matches the parameter ACC ID. Matches. If it does, if it matches, okay. If it matches, then create a new deposit transaction and add that into that matching account. Okay, that's sort of the English word. Very wordy, but somehow that can give you some clue. And when you say add that account, add that transaction into the matching account, you have to consider using, I'll go back, using the add transaction method. Okay, that's something you gotta use. That's something we defined already for you. Okay, so please try to do this. I'll give you about 5 minutes to do this. Okay, feel free to talk to your neighbor. That's fine. Okay, so I'll let you to complete it first. Try to struggle with it, and then we'll go over the solution together. Yes. Given, oh. My given account, I believe. Yeah, this is quite a tough exercise. I would say once you get a sample solution, try to study that and then bring questions on Wednesday if you like. Yeah, give you 5 minutes. Try to struggle with it, and then we'll go over the solution. Finally, as you know, I get to do some study. Which part is that? What about classes and objects? So what about trying to go over the let's make it simple for you, not too much further. Go over what I wrote to the heart. I really not too much. Isn't 35 being equal to 5. Passenger unit okay, good. Yeah, 235. You forgot to ask comment. He does everything.
Isn't calculation for the
Oh, actually, this one is not calculation yet. So this one is only to deposit. And the way you deposit is by inserting a new transaction object into the list of transactions. Right? So let me draw something on the board. Okay, I'll. Okay, so I might just lift out the projector for 1 minute. I'm not sure how visible this is. Do you think I can see the diagram somehow? Maybe? Okay, so basically, this is how you should think of it. So you have a client here. The client points to a client object. Maybe it's Jim, let's say. So let's say Jim is a client object. Jim points to clients because client has an attribute of accounts, which is an array of account objects. So let's say the first object there is actually an account, and each account has an ID and also has a transactions array. So that also points to another array, and each slot in the array points to a transaction objects. That's how the diagram looks like, right? So now you're trying to do deposit, let's say. So let's say Jim dot deposit. Let's say where I'm trying to do, let's say account 1, ACC1, and also I'm trying to deposit $150 into it. Let's say this is what you do in the tester. And now, if you look at, let's say this is ACC1, and the way you do that is by iterating through the accounts array one by one. Every time when you see the objects there, for example, you would see accounts 0, for example. Account 0 here refers to the first slots in this array here. And that should point to the first account objects there, right? And somehow you would like to find out what the ID is, you would use a dot notation, an ID. If this ID here happens to be ACC1, then that would be the account to actually insert. So for example, you do something like equals method here, let's say ACC1. If this matches, that means you're going to insert a new transaction for this particular account, right? And we got to add transaction objects there. So you can say things like accounts 0 dot add transaction here, and somehow you will create a transaction and then add it to here. Okay, that's more or less what you should do. Okay, I'll leave the board here. So for you can feel free to take a photo of that later after the lab session. But that's, yeah. I'll also try to draw this maybe and post it on the web later tonight. Just take some time to draw it. Okay, I'll do that. That's fine. But at least that's for your understanding now. Okay. Kind of get an idea. So somehow you want to find out the account objects that has the matching account ID. Once you find that account, you want to insert a new transaction into it that corresponds to the deposit you would like to do, right? But I'll do a solution with you together in a few minutes. Yeah, I'll try to post the diagrams to you later tonight. I'll just check the website a bit later today. Okay, so. Back. Okay. Let's maybe try to do it together, okay? Just give you some clue here. So now what we'd like to do is to say, we're going to iterate through the accounts. So we'd say use a loop. So for integer I equals 0, that's just the normal procedure. I less than accounts.length I plus plus, right? Nothing's new here yet. You want to iterate through the accounts objects there. However, you got to be careful here. When we say accounts.length, this is not so accurate. Why? Because let's say, remember initially we created an array of what size? Size 30, right? But what if this particular client has only 5 accounts so far? That means in a size 30 array, you got only 5 accounts filled in. What about the other 25 slots? They are not filled in yet. So when you say it will go up to accounts.length, that's not the right way to do. So what you should do is, you should do number of accounts. Okay? That's a huge difference here, changing from one line to the other. So please think about it. I will write it back to you, so something for you to think about. Think. Why not I less than accounts.length as the state condition? Okay. Yeah, the reason I already told you, but please try to think about it again. Okay, very important. Okay, so now what we can do is the following. So let's do just one step at a time. So every time when we are trying to use the loop counter to go into the array, let's say we have some account here, ACC is equal to and accounts I. That means every time when we are trying to look at a particular account for this client here, so we are trying to say accounts I, which will give us the account at this position I here. And then we're trying to just copy the address. Remember, assignment here would be copying the address. So we're just trying to make that into a location so we can refer to it. How should we do with that? Okay. So now you would say somehow if it matches, then we create a new deposit transaction. Okay, what do we mean? So we'd say if ACC dot account ID dot equals, because that's a string, right? Equals ACC ID. Okay. So let's see. Let's try to see what this line means. So here we'd say you can see ACC here is actually the IVE account in this account right here, and then we try to get its ID and check to see if the ID of that equals the account ID we're trying to deposit into. Just want to see if they match. This is one way of doing it. There's another way to do it. Another way to do it would be, or simply, you can say ACE accounts I dot ID dot equals. So you don't have the intermediate variable. Okay. So this will work as well in the if condition. Okay, this will also work. But I'm just trying to show you two lines. So yeah. Okay, you can really try both. Okay, if that's the case, then we're going to insert a new transaction into it. So this might be the part you haven't reached yet. Okay, so first of all, we want a new transaction. How do we create a new transaction? We need a new keyword, right? So we're going to say transaction here. So this is going to be a deposit transaction. Let's say D-trans, okay, deposit transaction. And then we say new transaction here. And now we're going to say transaction ID, anything. Let's say, what about D-trans, okay? And then we'll say, what about the type? So it's a deposit transaction here. And what about the amount? The amount should correspond to how much amount you have over here. This method is actually quite complicated, but so that's why I'll give you time to think about it. You can see now, somehow we are trying to create a transaction that corresponds to this particular deposit we would like to do, right? So you can see the amount here matches the amount as the input parameter. Okay, they actually match. Okay. After we have created a new transaction here, we actually insert it. So we would say ACC, which is the account dot add transaction, and then the trans. Okay, that's it. You see, not many lines of code, but you do have to know what's going on. That's it. That's about deposit. Okay, let's go over again, and I'll give you time to think about it. You can see the comment itself is actually much longer than the code, right? Code is actually much more concise. Let's try to understand this code again. We are trying to define a mutator called deposit. That's why it returns nothing, void. We're going to take two inputs here. So the first input will be the ID of the account we would like to deposit into. And we also got the amount we would like to deposit, right? So now these two are the input that users are going to give to us. So now we say the step of doing it is by iterating through the accounts array based on how many accounts you've got so far. That's why this will be the upper bound. That's like a like a counter you have maintained so far. And then we simply say, when you say accounts I, this will go into the ith position in the array, and then give to you its address, and then just keep saving some temporary variable. To see how this assignment works, you should really refer to the slides. We do have explanation there. And then you want to see for each time when you are entering, encountering some account there, you're going to check to see if this ID matches the ID you're looking for. You can see ACC ID is the ACC ID here. And also after that, if that matches, you actually create a new transaction. And the new transaction here is going to have the matching information here. We're going to do one test case together. Okay, so you can see the transaction we are trying to create is simply transaction and a new transaction here. So just keep some ID here. So you can see it's a deposit type. And then the amount here should match the amount we have for the input parameter. Okay? And then later on, we'll say the ACC you have should add the transaction. This is another mutation we just defined before we did this one, right? Add the transaction object into it. Let's do some tests and see how that works. And then we use a debugger. Okay, go to banking system tester here. So what about we do the following? We can say Jim dot deposit. Let's say, because so far we only add ACC1 to Jim, and ACC1 has the account ID ACC1. So we have ACC1 here, and let's say we would like to deposit, let's say, $200 into Jim's account. Okay. From the user's point of view, it's as easy as that. Okay, just one single line. And I would like to put a breakpoint here and see how that works. Okay. So if I put a breakpoint here and try to debug it, I would say run debug as Java application. Okay, you can see now I stop here. Line number 19. It's actually right before I deposit into Jim. But before I do that, let's have a look at Jim. So you can see Jim is actually a client. As you can see, if I click on Jim, it actually shows me this printout, clients at this weird number here. That's actually corresponds to what I said today in the class. Because whenever you want to print the object, you'll print out its address by default rather than its contents, right? So that's what happens in Eclipse. That's why you see something similar for the point in the class. If you see Jim, you see the accounts, you can see Jim so far got only one account. And the account has the ID ACC1, and that account has just empty transactions list, right? That's something you should really see yourself. So now let's see, we would like to do deposit. So you will go into the deposit there. So let's say step into. If you say step into, now we are in the loop. Okay, you can see now we are in the deposit method there in the client class, the one we just defined. So now we're going to go over the accounts. So you can see if you move your mouse over, the number of accounts currently is simply just one because we got only ACC1 in the accounts. So we're going to go over that. First of all, before we do this assignment here, you can see ACC here is simply doesn't exist yet because we haven't declared that. So let's just go step over. Okay, after this line here, you will see that ACC over here is actually referring to something I would like you to try to convince yourself. Okay, let's have a look here. Over here, when I say ACC here, you see the printout is simply the address for the objects. You would say account at 7637F22. So wherever you actually got better memory, try to remember this number for me for 5 seconds, okay? This number here, 7637F22, something like that. So now, I would like you to check one more thing. So this is the object that we got assigned from this. So let's go somewhere. So if you go into the account, So now because we are actually in the account, let's go to, so that's ACC, and now we are in clients. So now let's go to accounts. So now can we just see the first number there? So this is the first one. Do they seem to match? They seem to match, right? So now what I'm trying to say is, if I can make this bigger. So there are two things for you to see. What you have to do is, I just cannot actually let you see my whole screen. But what you want to see is, ACC here is actually getting the first account from the clients. And that one has some address like this. Okay. However, if you go to the first account in the array, that one also has the same address. Okay, exactly the same. That actually corresponds to what I said in the class. Whenever you do any assignments for the reference type, it copies the address rather than the contents. Okay, very important point. You really should really see that by yourself in the Eclipse. Okay, so now we're here. So we're gonna see if the account ID, which is so let's see ACC ID here, is simply just ACC1, and the ACC ID here is also ACC1. So that should really match. If that matches, then we'll step over. Okay, and now because they match, so now we're gonna create a new transaction here with this argument here. And then if you do that, you can see now we are going to call the ACC.add transaction, right? We're going to create a new transaction, insert it into it. Okay, if you try to do that, if you say step into again, if you do that, you can see now you are in the add transaction method in the account class. Okay, and over here you see we'll try to assign a new transaction to it, and then also increment the counter, etc. Okay. And after this, we are done. So after the deposit, you can see one more thing. So you can see now for Jin, after deposit, you will see under the accounts, for the first account over there, that's the account we wanted to do the deposit. You can see the number of transactions now becomes 1. And also, you will see the list of transactions there. The first one is indeed the one we just created, the D-trans. And also it has the right amount over there. Okay, that's a very quick walkthrough. So watch a video and then try to reproduce it yourself. And let me say one more thing before I let you do the exercise. So that's one way of testing it. And can we just go back to, let's say, the clients. So this is the method for deposit. I would like you to do the one for withdrawal. Okay, the withdrawal is going to do something similar. Except you're going to find, once you find a matching account, you're going to create a new transaction object. But the object is going to be of type withdraw rather than D. W type rather than D type. And then the amount is going to be different. Okay, try to do the another mutated method there. So what I want you to do is, I'll write the comments here. Mutated method that withdraws certain amount from a given account. Okay, so this is your exercise. Okay, so once you have done the withdrawal, so now you are only one step away from doing the get balance method from a given account. That's the missing part. Okay, any questions so far? No? Okay, go over the what I have written so far. I think I've done basically pretty much 90% of what you should do. I think what's left would be maybe about 80%. What's left would be the withdrawal method here, also transfer method here, and also the transfer method at the banking system level. So these are the 3 methods left. So try to do both all of them, and then we'll discuss again on Wednesday. So before Wednesday, at least I would expect you to understand everything up to now, right? If you got trouble, again, you can come to my office hour tomorrow. And we also got a review session on Wednesday, 12:30 to 1:30. Okay, if you have no questions, you can feel free to leave.